It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I started the show off today, the Trump show is back. I mean, this is all we're going to hear about for days and days. And I still like the idea. I think his mugshot should be his presidential photo or his presidential portrait, because you know he's going to go and mug it up for the camera. He has to. You maybe some thumbs up, or there's going to be something ridiculous that comes out of this. But here to share some thoughts on the case and whether this is a joke, as I've had some people tell me, whether this is small potatoes or whether this is potentially serious. I've asked my good friend Renato Mariotti to come share some thoughts with us. Renato's a former federal prosecutor and host of the It's Complicated podcast. We'll get links out on how you can check that out. Renato, thanks for taking time for us.
Happy to be here, Rick.
So let's start with what we know so far. I've seen that there are probably somewhere upwards of 30 charges that are part of this. Now nobody knows. I guess it's still sealed, but this is what's come out. You know, how bad do you think this is? How bad could it be? Thoughts?
Well, first of all, whenever you're indicted with committing felonies, that's a serious thing. You know, I think it's one thing that's blown my mind is people have been like blasé about it on the internet. I mean, there's people on Twitter telling me like, oh, you know, aren't there going to be any consequences for this guy? And it's like, well, he just got indicted. Like, you know, for people, I was a federal prosecutor for a long time, and you know, I've been in private practice for several years, and when I represent somebody who's been indicted, it's like a major life event for them.
Yeah.
I mean, for most people, and you'll say, well, yeah, but they're not rich. Well, no, most people who can pay me, can afford my law firm, have good money, are doing pretty well for themselves. And it is hard. There's people who want to commit suicide. There's people who they're devastated. You know, their reputation's destroyed. Their business is in a difficult spot. They're not sure how they're going to go on. So I think no matter what Trump is saying, no matter what BS is getting flung, it's a big deal. And you know what? There's more, you know, criminal cases on the way. Yeah. So very challenging situation for him.
No, and that's the thing. This, look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. But this seemed to me to be the least serious of all the things that he's charged with. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, I mean, based on what we know, I've been very careful. You know, all the Trumpsters are, you know, denouncing this. It's this and that. They haven't even read the indictment yet. So I'm being cautious because I haven't read the indictment. I don't know all the evidence, but based on what we hear, if this is really just the hush money payments and campaign, you know, alleged campaign finance case, like, yeah, that's really a lot more problematic for the prosecutors than the Fulton County case of January 6th or the others.
What's interesting to me, though, I mean, if he's got a history of paying off people, he kind of lives his life like a mobster. He doesn't write anything down, doesn't do email or any of that stuff. It's curious to me that you just don't have a bag of money laying around for when you need it. Why you would write a check for anything is beyond me, because immediately I'm going back to Jerry Springer bouncing a check to a hooker, and I'm going, you don't have a little bit of cash laying around and you're a billionaire?
It's an interesting thing. You know, if you're, you know, semi-legitimate, whenever you withdraw or deposit over $10,000 worth of cash, there's a form that's a CTR that's filled out. And so real criminals know to avoid that, right? Yeah, they have cash and they got it buried like a pirate, you know, or hidden someplace. But true story. I mean, you're dealing with a real criminal where they can, you know, have cash squirreled all over the place. Yeah, it's interesting. Most white collar folks try to disguise transactions in other ways. And he's not alone. I mean, the former Speaker of the House, Dennis Astor, was, you know, withdrawing money from his bank account to pay off, underage children they're no longer were children at that time, people he had abused. He was using his bank account as well.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing to me. So what are we expecting Tuesday? Now they say he's not going to be handcuffed. He's going to have to come in and he's going to have to be arraigned. Will there be a mug shot and fingerprinting? Will they make this a display thing? Will this be something done in a closet off the? How does it? If you're the prosecutor, how do you handle this?
Okay, well, first of all, he's going to get fingerprinted. He's going to get booked. That's just part of the deal. Okay, when you've been indicted, it's always a crazy thing, no matter how small the case is. And even if the person's coming in on their own recognizance, so to speak, they still got to get booked. The booking photo won't get released. And you're not going to see him. You're going to see him in a business suit or whatever he would, a Trump t-shirt, whatever he decides to wear. I assume a business suit. And he's not going to be in handcuffs. You will be able to see him like walking in the hall in the courtroom. They occasionally let a photographer in to take a photograph, like a still photograph. So we may see a photograph from inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
But it's not it's not like court TV, right?
Yeah, no, because I got it in my mind that they're gonna make a mockery of this. And you can disagree with me if you think that. I think he's going to make a total mockery of this. He's going to play the victim. He's going to play the martyr. My mind went to the famous Rosa Parks video or photo of Rosa Parks being fingerprinted. My mind went to that today. I think they're going to try and make him being fingerprinted, like in the same world. That the left is martyring this poor guy, and it's like a rallying cry. But I could be wrong.
What came to mind for me, Rick, I mean, you and I are thinking in similar vein. What came to mind for me is, remember when he got COVID?
Yeah.
And they like pumped him full of a bunch of drugs in the hospital. Then he came back to the White House. And he's like, I don't remember. He had his arms up, like, yes, I've overcome. He's out on the balcony, strutting around. I could just see him strutting around outside the courthouse and be like, he's like remains undefeated, or he's going to defeat the Democrats, or.
Yeah, no,
whatever.
I just see this going that way. Now, do you see it as interesting as I do? Because I'm listening to Marjorie Three Names. I'm listening to Lindsey Graham, all of the right-wing mouthpieces, saying, oh, this is the end of the republic. You're destroying the presidency. Now, these are the people who for years were saying, lock Hillary up, go after Obama, impeach Biden. These are people who've been calling for this kind of stuff for years. And now that it's gone against their guy, well, this is a bridge too far.
Yeah, well, you're telling me the Republicans are hypocrites? It's really surprising, Rick. I hadn't considered that before. But yeah, I mean, look, what's going to be interesting to me is what happens when more indictments drop. What happens when Fulton County comes? I mean, that one I think we can feel confident about, because let's face it, that grand jury foreperson wasn't exactly a poker player, was she?
No, not at all.
She didn't hold her cards close to the vest. So we pretty much know at least that one's coming. So at a certain point, is anyone on their side, are they going to take this seriously? Is everyone in some grand conspiracy? One thing I find funny is they always talk about like the left or the Democrats, or whoever they is.
Yeah, I don't know who they are.
As if you and I are the same guy as Alvin Bragg. Like we all sit around in a room together and plot, what we're going to do next. The reality is, probably most people didn't want Alvin Bragg. Like, what is Alvin Bragg doing? I'm sure Jack Smith is sitting there in D.C. like, hold off, Bragg. I got a case over here. But, people do what they're going to do.
It'll be interesting to see if now the floodgates open. And you see, the attorney there in Atlanta, you see, the people at the DOJ coming forward. Who knows? And does this help? Do you think this helps or hurts him? I think the common wisdom is in the primary, it's going to help him because the base is going to be all lathered up because they're martyring our guy. But in the general, I don't see any of this helps him in a general.
Yeah, I mean, look, the numbers out there that I've seen appear to suggest that it's helping him, at least in the short run. I wonder, though, Rick, will it really even help him in the primary when he gets indicted, like in a lot of places? Like, there was this pile on with certain defendants, right? Like, R. Kelly. Like every prosecutor in America started charging that guy. He was facing like 5 different cases. Avenatti, Harvey Weinstein. Like, if Donald Trump gets in that category, if there's like 4 indictments out there for this guy, like at a certain point, is there anybody in the Republican Party who's like, well, maybe we should indict the guy who's not facing 4 different criminal indictments. I don't know.
See, I still think the base is so loyal that they aren't going to believe any of it, and that's going to be enough to keep him at the front of the Republican Party, at least through the primary. I could be wrong, but I got to tell you, I want him to stand for election in 2024, and I want him to be soundly defeated so that maybe we have a chance to push back on all the insanity he's brought forth. So that brings up the question then, if he is the nominee, and I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball to say he will, but it looks like possibly. When do these trials hit? I mean, is it possible they push these off until he's actually president if he wins, and then it's 4 years down the road before they can do anything? I know this is unprecedented, but how could this play out?
Well, let's put aside the president thing for a minute. Like, let's just say that this guy was John Doe, CEO of a big company. I would tell him, look, New York courts are really backlogged, and you got a lot of potential legal challenges you can raise in this case. There's a lot of kind of unusual things going on there. This case probably not going to go to trial until 2024 at least. So you can, there's a lot that you could do in this case to, push it off even further. Now, but one strategic thing, just legally, by the way, I'll just say is, when you have multiple indictments, often you try to speed the weak ones up. Like, you speed up the weak one, you slow down the rest of them, so your weakest case goes first. But going to the presidency point, we have never had a situation where we'll start federal, where one branch of government, the judiciary, is trying to imprison is imprisoning the executive, right? And we certainly never had a situation where you had one level of government, like a state or local government, try to imprison the federal executive. I don't know what happened there. That's probably above my pay grade. That's some sort of like, it sounds like a what if episode, Marvel what if or something, more than a constitutional law question. But I've never, it blows my mind. That's beyond my
this whole thing, no one would have written this script. If you wrote this script and went to Netflix, they wouldn't even send you to Hulu. They would just show you the door.
Oh, it's insane. It's one of those movies that if you have one of those movies where it's like, it's so hard to believe, like, oh, the president's on the plane and he ends up beating up all the terrorists and taking over the plane with his bare hands. Like, this is like one of those, right? I mean, it's pretty insane, the things we're contemplating here.
But hey, look, I've got some Trump supporter friends who've got flags of Trump looking like Rambo. That version of him could take on people on the plane.
Yeah, right. Or there's also the one with the founding fathers all praying for him, laying hands on him. Yeah.
This is, again, just way out. But as I'm looking at this, and I'm looking towards Tuesday, I see Marjorie Three Names and everyone calling for protests. While we're kind of making light of this now, this could turn seriously deadly, because there are people trying to stoke the anger and get people all riled up and bunched up in the panties. April 19th is coming very soon. I've got some serious concerns of where we're going as a country, especially when you're looking at some of the people who are doing some of the things they're doing.
It's interesting. I think Trump is trying to rile up people to do like January 6th 2.0. And here's a prediction for you, Rick. Here's a hot take. I think imprisoning a lot of those people worked. It's been interesting to see. I follow a lot of right wingers online. It's been very fascinating to see some of the right wingers be like, yeah, it's a bad idea. Trump didn't help any of us. Like, when we got imprisoned, like, let's not do this. Lots of like super right wing people, Jack Posobiec and Jenna Ellis, and a lot, Jesse Kelly, all these right winger, like super right wing MAGA types. Like, yeah, no, we're not going to rot in prison for this guy. Please do not follow this command. I think it's hilarious.
No, it is hilarious because, if he didn't do anything, you're right. If he didn't do anything from the first time, he's not going to do anything again. But the other frame that I keep hearing from those folks is they've got it in their mind that the FBI caused January 6th. So even just being around these places, they believe that it was the FBI that's responsible. They did this, and that if they go to another one, the FBI could do another thing, and that might keep them away.
Yeah, or it's Antifa, or a plant or something else. Or there's always someone to blame, and then yet the people who get arrested are heroes, right? These are the same guys who have the #1 best-selling album on iTunes, singing with Donald Trump, right? The January 6th choir. They're a bunch of Antifa FBI informants who just happen to be Donald Trump fans. And we should all buy their album too.
It's Donald Trump's backup band, Antifa FBI. You're right. Again, you're thinking this through too much. You gotta put that brain away.
There you go.
Stop it.
It's like 1984. 1 + 1 = 3, right? Or you have to believe the absurd.
That's the new math. Evidently, that's the new math. They were complaining about Common Core. This is no core.
Yeah, no kidding. It makes no sense.
So last question I've got for you on this, because again, this is what we're looking down the barrel of over the next several days. I have some concerns over. Do you think a timeline for the other ones are coming soon? Any word on the secession of possible more, or is this going to be it for a while?
Yeah, I will tell you, I did not expect the Manhattan DA case to proceed like this. That's really came out of nowhere as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, especially since they said they were taking a month off.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And then even before that, right, Bragg had kind of decided not to follow along with what Cy Vance is doing. And then this hush money thing came out of nowhere. It's not like it's a new development or something, like Stormy Daniels just showed up, right? So it was kind of interesting. Fulton County, I mean, I thought that was going to be the first indictment, and that probably will come in the next few months. And then I don't know what Jack Smith's doing, but he's very aggressive. I mean, there's a guy hauling in Mike Pence. He's going after Trump's lawyers and getting the crime fraud exception to get all their private notes of their conversations with Trump. I mean, he's really going hard. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest danger. It's like, I don't know if you've ever watched like the Lord of the Rings movies where it's like, oh, you have all the different waves of the bad guys that come. And it's like it's like, oh, you think you got one, you've got the bad, there's one wave of guys coming and then another and another. I mean, this is sort of like Jack Smith's the kind of the final wave, for Donald Trump. Very difficult problem for him.
Well, we're going to see how this plays out, as the Trump show probably going to get top ratings for a while. So Rupert Murdoch should be happy. Not about right or left, not about red or blue. It's about green. So he might be raking it in. But Renato, I appreciate you sharing some of your expertise with us, and I hope you'll come back and keep us informed as this moves on down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick.
Good stuff. Our good friend Renato Mariotti. Make sure you check out his podcast, the It's Complicated podcast. You can find that wherever you find your favorites. Gonna take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We are AFGE. We support our nation's military and our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders and provide services to our nation's seniors. Across the country and here in Washington, D.C., the American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The Inflation Reduction Act will lower energy prices and create millions of new jobs by dramatically increasing the manufacturing of solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars, and energy-efficient home appliances. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice as Americans.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
So Renato brought up Mike Pence, and I got to tell you, the Mike Pence thing popped into my head. Did you see the Wolf Blitzer interview with him, where he said, "I think it's time. I think the time has come for federal legislation that would bring the death penalty to anyone that engages in a mass shooting that claims lives." There is so much insanity in that statement. There should be the death penalty if anyone mass shoots and kills people. That's generally what mass shootings bring us. But here's the thing. Here's the one thing that, my friends on the death penalty side, I'm not a death penalty person. I don't believe in federal murder. I don't believe in state-sponsored murder. I do understand vigilante justice. I do. And I understand you touch my kid, bad things are going to happen. And I'll take my chances with a jury. And I think a lot of people think that way. But I'm not in favor of state-sponsored murder. I'm not in favor because I know how unequally it is applied. People with resources tend to get away with double murder. Maybe we've seen that once before. But this, I saw this and I'm going, okay, time's come for federal legislation for the death penalty for people who do these mass shootings. And my mind goes, how many mass shooters have lived? I can think of that Dylan Roof guy, but they took him to Burger King, which is weird. He just shot some black people. What's wrong with that? Evidently, because you do that, go to Burger King. But most of these people, they don't care about living. They go into this knowing this is going to be my last day. So it's not the deterrent I think Mike Pence thinks it is. Now, understand, people on that side of the aisle, they're, we're gonna iron fist and we're gonna show them. If you're going to go and engage in this kind of activity, if you're going to go out and I'm going to go shoot up a place, you're not thinking about the death penalty. You're not worried about the consequences. This is how ridiculous this argument is. Now, again, the idea here is to get away from talking about the fact that guns kill people. I know people kill people, but guns help, yes. They do it much more efficiently than butter knives and plastic spoons. But this is to change the narrative, and to have Pence going, we should bring back the death penalty on the is just stupid. But again, this is what they do. This is how they change the narrative. What we should be doing is talking about, and I've had a bunch of these conversations here recently, talking about giving people a fighting chance. Now you got people, put a gun in every classroom. I'm sorry. I don't think the teachers want that, or I don't think it's going to help. But I'm not against having people, security people on the premises, walking the perimeter. I just don't want it to end up being an armed camp. When I went to Mexico years ago, and when I got off the plane, the one thing that popped into my vision was they had sand barricades set up on all the street corners with people with stationary machine guns. And I'm going, wait a second. I don't feel safer. I know the bad people are, I'm not feeling the love. Is that what we're going to do out in front of every one of our schools so that gun nuts can have their toys, so that we can have something that is going to blow off 100 rounds? And I had an interesting conversation with one of my gun fetish acquaintances. And I said, look, I've been in situations where people have used handguns to shoot other people with. And you learn to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's out. I don't know that you can count to 100 fast enough as the bullets are going out. I don't know that I would trust my counting. So you don't really have a chance. Maybe we could be talking about some of that. Maybe we could be talking about background checks and red flag laws, all kinds of things. And here's what the response always is. Well, you're not going to stop all of them. And of course you're not going to stop all of them. There's always going to be someone who's going to do something bad. But you know what you can do? You can make it more difficult for them. Because I'll bet you this woman in Nashville, I'll bet you couldn't go buy 5 guns legally with the mental health background that she had. I got to think those 3 kids, those 3 9-year-olds, they got a chance. I got to think that. I think if you make it more difficult to go through the paperwork and answer questions and go through the hoops to get it, I got to think that barrier going to weed out at least some. And I know your convenience to be able to get whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, is much more important than the families of those 3 9-year-olds. I get that. But as a society, this is a conversation we better figure out how to get our minds around. And I know my Republican friends, much like the congressman in Tennessee, we're not fixing it. It's not going anywhere. And they're already telling you they're not doing anything. There'll be no legislation. There'll be no movement. It's just your kids. Something interesting to think about. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads. But I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. And then the Teamsters pushed a lot so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind, the union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right, left, or red, blue, when they are and always have been up, down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.